Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. And thank you especially to the people who make this possible for you every single day with their support at patreon.com/SW7x7. Alright, we're here to talk about Revenge Justice, which is the second episode of The Acolyte, dropped on the premiere day on June 4th. This is our 7 takeaway breakdown episode. We'll start, as we usually do, with a high-level overview of what actually happened in the episode. So the idea of Osha being the culprit in the murder of Master Indara is officially dispensed with by the Jedi Order when they find out that there's been another attempted attack on a Jedi on the planet Olega. And it's further cemented when Sol and Yord and Jeki get to the Jedi Temple on Olega. They talk to a street urchin who has been captured and identified as having helped the mysterious intruder. That street urchin says, "She did it," pointing at Osha. Of course, it's not Osha because Osha was with them. I mean, yeah. You know, if there's some crazy twist that's coming, I would be shocked, but there ought not to be. But what timing. Just as Sol and company get there to find out what's going on, May takes her a second attempt at this particular Jedi master named Torben. We'll talk about him a little more in a moment. And she convinces him to drink a poison to kill himself rather than have his crimes exposed to the Jedi Council. Supposed crimes, oh yeah, that's another thing too. Sol and company arrive just in time to find Master Torben's body, but not quick enough to find May. But the poison leads them to a local apothecary, which is currently being run not by the usual shopkeeper, but by someone who has replaced him, possibly by nefarious means. That's Chimere. And we find out that his character has been working as a support character for May in her efforts to kill 4 different Jedi. One of which has to be killed without a weapon for whoever the master is. That's presumably the stranger that we saw at the end of the first episode. So the Jedi come up with a plan to take advantage of Osha's resemblance to May as a twin and get Chimere to admit to what he's done on the record. Chimere manages to kind of weasel his way out of things and say, oh yeah, May is not here, but I have some stuff for her. She's going to be back tonight. Which turns out to be true, and the Jedi are waiting, particularly Sol, who notes that she is attacking him without a weapon. And here again, the significance of this seems to be noticed. Like, people are aware of what's going on, but there's still more that they're not quite telling us. Sol eventually uses a mind probe to discover that there is a master that May's reporting to, but that master is hiding his identity from May. Ultimately, May is able to poof up a dust cloud and escape. She goes back to Chimere and is about to kill him, but he says, hey, you don't want to do that because I know where the Wookiee Jedi is. And so Kelnaka is our third of 4 Jedi that are going to be attacked. And we get to see Kelnaka at the end of the episode. And that's basically what happens in Revenge Justice. That's the high-level overview. All right, for a second takeaway, let's talk about Master Torben. So Master Torben was apparently part of this event on Brendok 16 years ago. And according to the head of the Jedi Temple on Olega, he has been in a meditative state and hasn't talked to anyone for more than 10 years. So we know, again, that whatever happened on Brendok was bad. Further to that, with the confrontation with May and Torben the second time around, May figures out what the weakness is with Chimere's help in their previous discussion. It seems like he is impenetrable, according to May. Chimere says everybody has a weakness, and his weakness is that there's one thing he's seeking. He can't find peace at all. Like, the only way he's going to get it is from May and from absolution through May. So that's what May uses in her second attempt. She says, I can either report you to the Jedi Council or I can forgive you right here, right now, and offers him a poison to use for himself. This apparently is the weakness, and he comes out of his meditative state. He looks at her and he says, forgive me, and I thought we were doing the right thing. So once again, we are getting vibes that something really bad went down on Brendok and that the Jedi are responsible for it, or could be seen to be responsible for it, and it seems like they're trying to cover it up. For a third takeaway, we'll talk about May, and she pulls the attack me with all your strength thing again in this episode. So yeah, this must be another requirement that the Master is putting on things. And we learned that of the 4 Jedi that she's supposed to kill, one of them has to be without a weapon to be in the Master's good graces. But there's also something going on about taking weapons away from Jedi. We saw in the first episode that while May was fighting Indara, she made a couple of grabs for her lightsaber and did not get it. This time, when she's fighting Master Saul, she does take another swipe to try to grab his lightsaber and misses. So, that's our second one. I have a feeling that when Kelnaka shows up, that she's going to take a shot at his lightsaber, and, if the rule of threes applies, then she might get his. It does remind me a bit about the very early days after the fall of the Republic, when Emperor Palpatine required Darth Vader to get a lightsaber from another Jedi and to defeat that Jedi in combat. Like that's how he would get his own lightsaber again. And funnily enough, that also has a little bit of a tie with this Barash vow thing that we hear May talk about, saying, I know why you took the Barash vow to Master Torben, and we'll talk about the Barash vow in our deep dive episode tomorrow. For a fourth takeaway, let's talk about Chimere. So Chimere had initially been described to us as a smuggler who now lives a life of leisure and occasionally searches for unique and valuable objects. So that seems to have seriously undersold his deal. So according to him, as he's questioned by the Jedi, he was a gun runner for the Hutts. Like, that's kind of a bigger deal than just being a smuggler. I mean, a smuggler could cover a lot of different things, but being a gun runner for the Hutts is a big deal. And this idea of him leading a life of leisure while trading unique objects, right? I mean, yeah, we see him sampling the wares of the apothecary and being asleep late into the day. So that certainly indicates a life of leisure, but he's actually assisting somebody who seems to want to be a Sith, if he isn't a Sith already, in the murder of several Jedi. So yeah, I feel like Chimere is really kind of skated under the radar. Thinking about the databank entry about him, and even Manny Jacinto, the way that he talked about Chimere in interviews, describing him as like Han Solo with less riz. But that moment when he approaches Osha trying to pose as May, and he kind of like gets closer to her and says, you look almost exactly like her, like the level of menace and confidence he delivers that with is just, yeah, it was quite a compelling moment. Speaking of Osha, we got to talk about a couple of things for our fifth takeaway. First of all, this business of her seeing visions of young May. When we had that scene in the first episode, it was happening while she had been knocked out as a result of the ship crashing on Karlak. Now she's actually seeing May, or having visions of May while she's awake. It's the vision of May that leads her to find Master Torben's dead body in the Jedi Temple. That's the kind of stuff that makes you wonder about the, Tyler Durden scenarios and whether something's going on in her mind that is going to be some bigger reveal later on down the road. I mean, I don't think so, but they keep kind of toying with us on that. And then Saul and she have a conversation about May and wanting to confront May. Saul is trying to tell her, nope, let me do it. And she's saying, like, you're not my master. You can't tell me what to do. He manages to convince her to stay out of it, but ultimately she does end up coming face to face with May, who incidentally also thinks that Osha is dead. She is shocked to find out that Osha's alive. And Osha still has that stun blaster, but according to the audio description, Osha throws her own aim off. There was a question about whether she actually intended to miss or if she just plain missed with that shot. Earlier in the episode, Saul tells Jordan Jecki, excuse me, that Osha knows how to use one of these things, one of these stun blasters, and so the miss, yeah, apparently was intentional. She was aiming for her and then threw off her own aim and ultimately did not shoot her with that stun blast. For a sixth takeaway, we'll talk about Master Saul and his story about things. It feels like he's just digging himself a deeper and deeper hole on things. He has a conversation with Osha about how he wanted to save both her and May all those years ago. And despite the fact that they both apparently saw what they thought they saw, which was May dying in some fashion, probably in a fire somehow, that she must have survived. And Osha tries to apparently once again offer some consolation and some forgiveness to Sol by saying, you know, like, you can't blame yourself for this. It's not your fault. And I've told you that before. And later on, when they're arguing about who's going to confront May, Sol says, you know, let me handle it, have faith in May, and then have faith in me. And they have a brief dispute over whether Osha wants justice, as she claims, or whether she wants revenge, which is what Sol thinks. Sol says that he didn't know that she was still so angry. There's definitely a father-daughter relationship thing going on here, and she, you know, responds and says, you know, she killed my entire family and she destroyed my life. And Sol tries to take the high road by saying, yeah, look what revenge is doing to your sister. You know, I couldn't save her then, so let me try to save her now. I don't know, man. I feel like this is going to end really badly for Sol and Osha after all is said and done. And for a seventh and final takeaway, this is our little fun fact area. So first of all, we'll talk about the two new planets that are introduced to us, Olega and Kofar. Kofar is the planet at the end of the episode where Kelnaka is heading out. Lovely forest retreat, as Kymir tells us. So both of those planets have been invented for the Acolyte series, brand new appearances, and also great fun. There is a first use in the series of the classic iconic phrase, I have a bad feeling about this, and it comes from Yord in the midst of the stakeout waiting for May to show up. And that's what I've got for you on our breakdown episode talking about Revenge Justice, which is the second episode of the Acolyte Season 1, and that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Also, I think, you know, well, certainly the only episode so far where the words in the title are actually spoken in the episode. So, if you enjoy this Daily Dose of Star Wars Joy, please share it with other folks that you know that you think would like a Daily Dose of Star Wars Joy. You can tell people that it's out there for them. You can leave ratings and reviews and likes and subscribes and comments and follows and joins. That'll tell the algorithms about it. And you can even help me as an independent creator produce this Daily Dose of Star Wars Joy. And you can do it for the cost of a cup of coffee a month. And you can learn more about that at patreon.com/SW7X7. Every little bit helps, and I'm very grateful for your support. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyrighted by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.